Hi there, my name is Christy, and I am here to tell you a little story. And that's my story and my testimony and how gut health has impacted my life. So, about 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with something called hemiplegic migraines. And what those do are they mimic strokes basically. The same effect on my body as if I was having strokes. The only difference is that it came from a migraine, a complex migraine, rather than an actual clot or something that would cause a stroke. I had them at the beginning, they were very mild, and later on in life, they kind of came back with a vengeance after my last son was born. And they were just debilitating, and I was considered to be disabled by my doctor. I had them about 3 or 4 times a day. There were these different attacks that would paralyze the right side of my body. I would first feel it in my face, and my hand would clench up like a fist. And I knew that I only had about a couple minutes before I was completely paralyzed on that side of my body. I didn't know how severe the attack was that was coming, how severe it would be. Sometimes they were mild, and I could, limp along kind of like a pirate, or I would just be totally paralyzed and immobile and not be able to move until it passed. Sometimes they lasted 20 minutes, but on average they lasted about an hour or two. I would lose my function to be able to speak. I had very slurred speech, or I just couldn't even have the muscle strength to open and close my jaw to speak at all. This made life really hard, and I felt like a burden to my family because I had 4 children and I was disabled. I couldn't drive. I couldn't volunteer in teachers' classrooms. Half the time I couldn't even make dinner or make lunch for them to take to school. I couldn't do much of anything. I got really depressed, and I felt worthless. I felt like I had no purpose in life because I couldn't even take care of the ones that I loved most, but I really couldn't do anything other than just live every day trying to prevent another one of these attacks from coming. So just like you would think people with typical migraines have triggers, I had triggers that could bring on one of these attacks. Some of them I don't even know what they are still to this day. But changes in the barometric pressure, and I live in Florida, so that happened often. MSG in my food or any type of preservative or would give me one of my attacks. Those are the ones actually that would land me in the hospital. MSG was my kryptonite. Even if I had a slight trace of it in anything that I ate, those are the ones that sent me into having a severe attack that I would have to relearn how to walk, relearn how to talk, relearn how to swallow, really learn how to open and close my hand. Just like if you had a patient who had a severe stroke, that was me. And MSG was usually the one that did that. And that actually happened to me 6 different times. So I had to relearn all of that 6 different times. And if you know anything about relearning how to walk or talk, it's not easy. It's painful, and you really dig in deep and you discover if you are a fighter or not. This last time that this happened was number 6. And I was actually proud of myself because I almost made it a whole year without one of these severe attacks. I had seen a new doctor, functional medicine doctor, and he actually found all these different things wrong with my body, and he kind of gave me answers to the missing puzzle pieces. What I had was very, very rare and very, very hard to treat, meaning there isn't a specific protocol to treat what I had. It's just kind of like, let's see if this works for you kind of a thing. So I found this amazing doctor, and he said, Christy, you have MTHFR gene mutation, your gut is a hot mess, and you have many, many vitamin deficiencies because of your gut. And we started the regime to get me back together, I started taking vitamins to help with the supplements, with the deficiencies, and I changed my diet, and I started getting a little bit better. From three attacks a day, I got them down to about 3 times a week. I was also on, at this point, 10 medications. At the most, I was at 16 medications. And I thought, hey, this is as good as it's gonna get. This is life. I'm okay. I'm good with it. I gained a little bit independence back. So, I would drive to Walmart, or drive to church, or drive to pick up my kids from school. I didn't go too far, but I was content. I was okay with that. And one thing that I've learned through all of this is that God wants more for you. So number 6 came along. I was at lunch with my husband, and despite me asking the waitress what the ingredients were, unfortunately I had MSG, and I didn't know that. And so it came along this massive attack. I'm rushed in an ambulance because you don't know the difference. If this is an actual stroke, you're at higher risk for stroke, or if this is, another one of my attacks. So I'm rushed in an ambulance. I'm unconscious at this point, having a hard time breathing because it affects your muscle strength. So I couldn't, my diaphragm was not opening and closing my lungs properly, and I get rushed, and I have a sat MRI, and it was, thank God, not a stroke, and it was in fact another one of my hemiplegic migraines. I felt crushed and devastated, and I was mad. I was mad at God that He would bring me almost a whole year, and I was here lying in the hospital bed again. But God knows what He's doing. So I got home a few days later, about a week later, in a wheelchair again, and doing intense physical therapy about 5 times a week, occupational and physical therapy. And now, to me, the best way to explain physical therapy when you have gone through something like this is you feel like a magician. Your brain is telling your body to move, but your body is not moving. It's mentally exhausting, because the first part of it is actually reconnecting your brain to your muscles, the signal to tell it to move, and that's first part of physical therapy. And occupational therapy is trying to reconnect that connection. And little by little, I was able to go from my wheelchair, and then my first goal was to walk in my walker for 1 minute unassisted, and I had my walker to walk on, but I lasted 30 seconds, and then I had to take a nap for about 2 hours because I was that exhausted. But little by little, I started regaining strength. And then I had a friend call me, and she said, hey, God keeps telling me I need to talk to you about something. Now, this is a friend that I had known for a couple years. She had brought me meal train food, and came to my house many times after I had left the hospital. And she had never mentioned this to me before. But here we are, about a year or two later, and actually in a whole different town. And she said, God keeps telling me I need to talk to you about this. And this was Gut Health. Now, if I would rewind backwards, the functional doctor that I had seen originally told me about gut health, but I was getting a little bit better in my eyes, and I thought, this is as good as it's gonna get. And I never followed up, and I didn't continue, any treatments or protocol to try to help that whacked up gut that he said that I had, because I guess for so many years, so many doctors really didn't know what to do with me, and I kind of I didn't really believe anything they told me after that point. So this is time number 2 that someone's talking to me about gut health. And this is also when I'm in a wheelchair again. And at this point, I've kind of come to the conclusion that I have tried everything that I can try, and it's not happening. Something's got to change if I want something to change. So she talked to me about gut health and these products, based on just focusing on repairing your gut. And everything that she was telling me was the same thing that my doctor had told me that I needed to do. Exactly. It's like that, down to the T, there was the same thing. And so I started taking supplements to treat my gut January of 2019. And I was still in the throes of physical therapy, about 1 month in. And but I noticed that things were getting a little bit better. The following month, my attacks were a little bit less. They're a little bit less severe. I got a little bit stronger. I was walking with a cane, and I remember my husband and I would go to the mall and we would walk laps because they had benches there if I needed to take a break. And during that time too, I started walking and then my first goal was to walk 6,000 steps every day, which is for me is a little bit over 2 miles. And God laid it in my heart to run a 5K. At the time, I had no idea what a 5K was, nor did I care to know what a 5K was because I was not a runner pre-illness ever. I'm not a cardio type of girl. But God was like, you're gonna run 5K. So I started running outside. Half of my body was still a little bit weak, but I was running and I was doing it. And by that May, so I had relearned how to walk in December, and that May I ran my first 5K. And by that May was also my last neurological attack, my last hemiplegic migraine. Now I look back, if I had listened to that doctor, a year prior, I wouldn't have had to suffer again. Because it took 4 months for my neurological disorder to disappear. 4 months. And I just wasn't ready. I had to get knocked down for the 6th time for God to say, okay, are you ready to hand this over to me? So when I finally handed it over to him, he took that and he reshaped my whole life and my whole story. I've lost 63 pounds in the process. I have not stopped running. That following October, I ran a 10K, and then I continued to train for half marathons, and in my training, I ran 5 half marathons. One of them that will be ever so special to me is that I ran around my neighborhood a half marathon the 1-year anniversary to the last attack that I had that landed me into the hospital on relearning how to walk. It was December 13th. And that will probably be forever the, greatest half race that I've ever ran. Just myself in my neighborhood, just celebrating everything that God has done in my life and through gut health. And I just came on here. A lot of people ask me to share my story, and I love to share it because it's not about me. It's honestly what God has done through me. And he used the tools of gut health. In the Bible, he talks about the man that he puts mud on the man's eyes. The mud was one of those tools. And for me, it was gut health is one of those tools that have healed my body and have given me purpose and have given me life and have taken me off of all those medications, has given me a chance to be a mom that I always wanted to be, to get to go outside and play with my kids, and to get to be the wife that I had always wanted to be. And honestly, it's given me joy. My whole life I dealt with anxiety and depression, and at that point in my life when I had started this, I was on 5 different psychiatric medications of those 16, and I am happy to say that I no longer have to take those, just because believe it or not, your gut has a lot to do with that too. So this is my story, and thank you for stopping by and listening to it. I hope it was a blessing to you and helps you on your own journey. Talk to you soon.